So in a way, right, you can see how there's a parallel there between the freedom of the individual and the freedom of the object, right? So the individual has a kind of political autonomy, and don't forget that at this point that political autonomy is largely reserved for white men who own property. So it's the very beginning of this idea, and it's not really, I mean, it's radical compared to a situation in which there are kings running the show, but it is not radical in by contemporary standards in a way, right? So, but we're looking at history, so we take history on its own terms, right? So there's this freedom of the individual politically being sought and achieved in different kinds of ways, and this movement of objects that facilitates trade, um, and kind of ease of trade, and then an ease of accumulation of wealth. Um, and then the same kinds of concerns were being invested in the art object at that time. And similar kinds of shifts in terms of shedding traditional bonds, right? Like art is less focused in the realm of uh, representing exclusively uh, the the self image of the rich or the interests of the church. Um, and artists become autonomous, sort of almost entrepreneurs, right? Like they make art independently and they present it to a market. Um, and then in concert with this, there is a changing sort of philosophical investment in how art relates to the society at large, which is that it's a place in which like the 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 quality of, how do you put this, um, the the individual's ability to understand art, and also just the way that art is made, are considered to be symptomatic or representative of the way an ideal citizen uh, operates in the world. And this idea was really nailed down by a very famous book by Schiller, The Aesthetic Education of Man, in which he argued for the creation of um, the way that a politically responsible and socially responsible individual um, came into being, uh, had a sort of artistic dimension to it. I'm distracted right now because the telephone is ringing. This is the strange thing about um, making a video, which is part of a class. Um, okay, so what all of that meant to me, or why that was so exciting to me, was that I realized that what art is in the society at any given moment is completely tied to the everything else in the society. And in a way that seems obvious, but it's something that I think it's easy to forget, um, and and it takes a certain kind of vigilance, I think, to explore the ways in which that can be used or understood in terms of an art practice, right? So, uh, if I was in a class right now, I'd stop and say, "Does that make sense?" So I'm going to stop, and I'll be back later.